Green algae live just about anywhere there is water, nutrients, and light. Some are very large cells. This is Closterium, easily identified by the dancing gypsum crystals contained in vacuoles at the tips of the cell. Others are filamentous, made from chains of cells. In Spirogyra, the chloroplast is band-shaped and spirals around the cell. At times, Spirogyra filaments line up. Connecting tubes form, and the cells from one strand fuse with the cells of the other. A form of algae sex known as conjugation. The result is a zygote that can resist freezing and drying, a dormant stage waiting for improved conditions. Colonial green protists let us imagine how simple plants evolved from single cells like these. In the same drop of pond water you can find small colonies such as gonium, usually with 16 cells, Eudorhina, a 32-cell colony, and the queen of colonial protists, Volvox, with thousands of flagellated cells lining the sphere. Inside, germinal cells are dividing, producing the next Volvox generation. When ready, these daughter colonies break out. When all have escaped, all that remains of their mother is an empty shell. Like spiral
what lichens are, it is helpful to know what they are not. Although often confused with them, lichens are not mosses. Mosses and liverworts are bryophytes. primitive plants with tiny green leaves containing chloroplasts. They often live in some of the same habitats and are low-growing like lichens, but these plants are not lichens. Lichens do not have roots, but absorb moisture directly into their tissues. In fact, a lichen is not even one organism. A lichen is a synthesis of two or more different organisms. One fungus joins with green algae or photosynthetic bacteria called cyanobacteria, and sometimes both. This special biological relationship is known as symbiosis. Symbiosis is a close, interdependent relationship between different species. In lichens, the symbiosis is between a fungus and photosynthesizing algae, or cyanobacteria. In most lichens, the fungus envelops the photosynthetic cells with its tentacle-like hyphae. The tips of the hyphae press against and may penetrate the cell wall. Chemically affected by the hyphae, the cell wall becomes permeable, so that the sugars leak out and feed the fungus. In exchange, the fungus provides a habitat for the algae or cyanobacteria, maintaining a more stable supply of moisture and shielding them from excessive solar radiation.
This is a favorite subject for study in biology classes, euglena. A euglenid moves through the water using its whip-like flagellum, but how does it determine its course? In green euglenids, a light-sensitive region lies near the base of the flagellum, shielded by a plate of red pigment, the red eye spot. The shield and receptor create a guidance system. In dim light, the cell will orient and swim toward the light until it reaches a light level suitable for photosynthesis. Euglenids show a range of shapes and behaviors. This one likes to stretch. Not all members of the euglenid line are green. Astasia evolved from a euglenid that lost its chloroplasts. Without photosynthesis, it gets food by absorbing nutrient molecules directly from its surroundings. In another relative, Paranema, the flagellum works like a propeller. Paranema can also use its flagellum as a whip for quick moves, useful for trapping prey. Euglenids are an ancient line of life, so different from other protists that some biologists have suggested placing them in a kingdom of their own.
Giardia is a nasty little parasite that can infect dogs, cats, and even people. This video talks about the life cycle of this gross bug, how dogs like Arnie can get it, and how it spread. The most significant symptom of Giardia is diarrhea, and unlike other parasites that are controlled by monthly prevention, Giardia is not. If you have any questions after you watch this video, make sure you talk to your veterinarian. They're the best resource for information about the health and well-being of your best friend.
Giardiasis is a serious contagious intestinal infection in dogs, cats, and even people. It's caused by single-celled Giardia parasites, which are tiny microscopic organisms called protozoa that live off a host animal. These protozoa develop into cysts that are released to the outside environment through animal feces. Disease transmission is by the fecal-oral route. This means dogs and cats become infected when they ingest anything related to feces contaminated with Giardia cysts, including water, food, and the stools themselves. After Giardia cysts are ingested by the host and pass into the small intestine, microorganisms called trophozoites are released and begin forming a colony. Huge numbers of trophozoites attach to the surface of cells lining the intestinal tract and disrupt normal intestinal functions, especially related to water absorption. Intense diarrhea is the result. As this happens, the pH level of the intestinal fluid increases and cholesterol becomes deprived. The pet becomes ill at this point. Gradually, the trophozoites transition and create protein that eventually forms Giardia cysts. These infective cysts are then released through the host stool, starting the cycle over again. The life cycle repeats itself when an unsuspecting dog or cat ingests something contaminated with the new Giardia cysts. Giardiasis often results in diarrhea or loose stools, flatulence, vomiting, dehydration, a poor hair coat, and weight loss or failure to gain weight. If left undetected and treated, this chronic debilitation can even cause death, though this is rare. Talk to your veterinarian about preventing giardiasis from infecting your pet and your family.
Recipe for rearing Paramecium. To a jar of pond water, add a little boiled hay and allow to age for several days. By day 5, there are plenty of organisms for observation. Transfer some to a glass slide where you can observe how Paramecium feeds on bacteria, how the cell gets rid of water entering by osmosis, how it eliminates undigestible material, how it deals with metabolic wastes by crystallizing them, how it avoids getting trapped in microscopic mazes, and how it reproduces asexually with division of its macronucleus and the duplication of its various organelles. Periodically, Paramecium enters into a sexual process, whereby individuals fuse together and exchange micronuclei. This mixing of genes revitalizes the Paramecium population, which can then continue on reproducing asexually for hundreds of generations.
In this video, we see the life cycle of Trypanosoma cruzi in the human host. The trypanosome life cycle begins with the triatomine insect, which is infected with T. cruzi, biting a human host. Following the ingestion of blood, the metacyclic trypomastogotes are released with the feces from the insect near the area of the bite. Note that this form has great motility. Observe that the parasite enters the host through the bite site when the host scratches the site, or when the parasite moves to a region covered by mucosa. The parasite reaches the mammalian bloodstream and subsequently invades different cell types that it encounters, such as macrophages, muscle cells, epithelial cells, and neurons. In this example, the attachment of the trypomastogote form of the parasite to the macrophage surface is observed. The process of internalization via phagocytosis begins with the formation of pseudopods. During and after the internalization of the parasite, the parasitophorous vacuole assembles. Host cell lysosomes migrate toward the internalization region and fuse with the parasitophorous vacuole. The lysosomal content is released in the vacuole. However, the parasite is not affected. In the vacuole, the trypomastogote transforms into an amastogote. This transformation is accompanied by the disruption of the parasitophorous vacuole membrane. The amastogotes are released into the cytoplasm of the host cell and divide multiple times. Observe how many mastigotes are accumulating through the division process. They can occupy the entire cytoplasm of the host cell. Following division, the mastigotes transform into trypomastigotes, which show intense and constant movement that culminates with their bursting out of the cell. The trypomastigotes reach the extracellular space and, subsequently, the bloodstream. The parasites will now infect new cells.
There are probably at least as many kinds of protists living inside animals as there are living in ponds, puddles, and oceans. One of the most serious for us is Plasmodium, the malaria organism. Plasmodium is a parasite of the red blood cells multiplying and breaking out in a daily cycle that produces the alternating chills and fever of malaria. Transmission of the parasite from host to host is by mosquito.
Life cycle of fern. The plant body of fern is divided into root, stem and leaves. Leaves are the only aerial part of plant body. Stem is represented by underground rhizome. Rhizome is densely clothed with numerous scales or ramenta. Leaves are large, compound, and look like a branch, hence named as frond. Each leaf has a short stalk called petiole. The pinnae develop on main stalk called rachis, which is the continuous of petiole. Leaflet with sporangia are known as sporophyles. Sporangium bears large number of spores. The sporangia are aggregated in groups called sori. The spore is minute dark brown and tetrahedral in shape. The prothallus is green and heart-shaped. The prothallus lies flat on the ground and bears many unicellular rhizoids. On the undersurface, antheridia and archegonia are borne. Antherozoids swim in water by their cilia. One of the sperm fuses with the egg to form a zygote. It covers itself with the cell wall and is called oospore. The oospore divides and redivides to form the embryo. However, with the development of green leaf and root, and with the decay of prothallus, sporophyte develops into an independent plant body.
Called boreal forests are found in subarctic, temperate and subtropical areas. In Romania, the conifers form the upper floor of tree vegetation, which is present in mountain regions. The composition of the coniferous forests is less varied than the deciduous forests. Gymnosperms, the trees with naked seeds, are dominant. Fir, pine, spruce, yew, and larch. The conifers are tall trees with linear trunks without ramifications. They have small, water-repellent, needle-like leaves. These species are evergreens and do not lose their leaves in autumn. Larch is the single exception. The thickness of the forests makes them usually dark. Most animals are not specific to this type of forest. They make their way here from deciduous forests. Life develops in two layers: invertebrates, reptiles and mammals on the ground, and birds in the canopy. Emblematic animals in the coniferous forests are the marten, the wolf, the brown bear, the squirrel, the roe deer, the lynx, and the blackcock. Mountainous regions covered by coniferous forests produce a high amount of oxygen and secrete antibacterial substances. The landscape and distinctive properties of these forests are a huge value for tourism and medicine.
As with all land plants, the life cycle of an angiosperm alternates between a diploid sporophyte generation, represented here by the flower of the mature sporophyte plant, and a haploid gametophyte generation. Within the flower's male parts, called the anthers, are millions of diploid spores called microsporocytes. These microsporocytes divide by meiosis to produce haploid microspores. Meanwhile, a similar process occurs within the flower's female parts, which consist of one or more carpels. In this example, the single carpel consists of a stigma, style, ovary, and ovule. A single diploid megasporocyte exists in the ovule and divides by meiosis to produce 4 haploid megaspores, only one of which survives. By producing 2 different types of spores, the microspores and megaspores, angiosperms and all other seed plants are considered heterosporous. Each microspore undergoes a mitotic division and differentiation to produce a pollen grain. A pollen grain is the haploid male gametophyte called a microgametophyte. The surviving megaspore divides by mitosis to produce 7 haploid cells. One large, centrally located cell contains 2 nuclei called polar nuclei. Another cell is the egg. The 7-celled structure makes up the female gametophyte called the megagametophyte. The pollen grain pollinates the female parts of the flower by landing on the stigma. Here, the pollen grain germinates, and a pollen tube grows down the style until it meets the female gametophyte. 2 sperm from the pollen grain travel through the pollen tube and enter the female gametophyte. One fertilizes the egg, forming a diploid zygote. The other fertilizes 2 polar nuclei, forming a triploid cell. The fertilization of both the egg cell and the central cell is called double fertilization, a hallmark of the life cycle of angiosperms. The zygote, which begins the next sporophyte generation, develops into the embryo, while the triploid cell develops into the nutritive endosperm of the seed. The seed germinates, and when the sporophyte matures, the life cycle begins again.
Hundreds of millions of years ago, before animals swam the ocean's waters or scurried along the seafloor, only one group of animals existed. They were sponges. Then creatures far more complex sprang into being and changed the world forever. These were the first cnidarians. They may not look like pioneers, but cnidarians marked a turning point for animal behavior. These creatures were the first to wield sensitive tentacles that could actually reach out and perceive the world. More than 500 million years ago, cnidarians invented other features we take for granted today. Here was an animal with a mouth. and connected to that mouth, a stomach to digest food. It was a brilliant innovation that would spread throughout the animal kingdom. But cnidarians brought even greater inventions. These deceptively simple creatures invented movement. The very first animal movements may have looked much like these subtle stirrings. With two sets of muscles, cnidarians can bend in any direction. To control their muscles, they rely on another cnidarian invention, special cells called nerves. Through a set of these nerves, electrical impulses trigger one set of muscles to contract, pushing the animal higher. By contracting the other set of muscles, the animal can flex itself into the perfect pose for snagging food. It looks so simple, but all creatures that crawl, soar, or swim today rely on muscle and nerve, their ancient inheritance from cnidarians. Appearances can be deceiving. Creatures that look slow and simple actually started the nimble dance of life. Cnidarians were the first active predators on the planet. Like its ancestors, this anemone may seem docile, but it has tricks for snaring fast-moving flesh. Lining its tentacles are millions of special capsules called nematocysts. Inside the capsules lie thread-like projectiles loaded with deadly poisons. When unleashed, these weapons fire with the acceleration of a rifle bullet. They pierce their target and pump it full of paralyzing toxins. The tentacles must be touched before the weapons can discharge, and for that, the prey must come to the anemone. The goby is a swift swimmer, with eyes and senses attuned to any sign of danger and a brain able to process complex signals. It seems better equipped for survival. For the goby, one unguarded moment could be fatal. Over millions of years, some cnidarians evolved in a dramatically new direction. The edges of their mouth extended, and they developed arm-like feeding structures. Their tentacles became thin strands. Their cylindrical stalk transformed to a gelatinous bell, and a familiar, ghost-like animal took shape. With the evolution of jellyfish, cnidarians may well have been the first animals to swim the world's oceans. With a body plan that would endure the ages, they entered watery realms across the planet. Today, these ocean drifters are prolific, and they come in a stunning variety of shapes and sizes. Trailing their deadly tentacles, jellyfish slowly trawl for prey. Scientists know that jellyfish thrive in the upper ocean. Apparently, the remarkable creatures that dominate the upper waters are also abundant in the deeper reaches. This astounding creature, known as Praia, is a combination of the two basic cnidarian shapes. The pulsing, bell-shaped medusa, and the stalk-like polyp with trailing tentacles. Spanning up to 120 feet, Praia is the longest predator in the world, longer even than a blue whale. Deeper, a Colobonema, a jellyfish with a surprising defense. When startled, it detaches its tentacles, leaving them behind as decoys to distract would-be attackers. This jellyfish has never been seen before, never classified, never given a name. Its size, 3 feet in diameter, makes it larger than most other jellyfish in the world. To some, these cnidarians appear fantastic, surprising, even otherworldly. But in this realm, they are the dominant animals. Millions of years ago, unlikely pioneers sparked a revolution. Cnidarians set animal life in motion. So much of what we take for granted today began with cnidarians. Simple creatures that forever set into motion the magnificent shape of life.
An alien that can float through space. With a giant brain shaped like a donut, 8 arms growing out of its head, and 3 hearts pumping blue blood. This alien lives right here on Earth. It's called the cuttlefish. A flesh-eating predator who's a master of illusion, changing its shape and color at will. It can hypnotize its prey, or even become invisible.
They've developed this skin that can do the amazing changes in color and changes in shape. And you couldn't get a weirder looking animal.
Every place they go, they are morphing into something that looks a lot like that environment.
How does an animal that's related to a slug manage such clever tricks?
You get a sense there's a hell of a lot going on in those brains, but we're struggling to kind of understand how they work.
Nova dives into a stunning and bizarre world as researchers probe the surprising brain power
3, 2, 1.
and explore the conjuring magic of one of the strangest creatures alive today.
We are testing an animal that's very alien. It's as close, perhaps, as we're going to get to studying an animal on another planet.
Kings of Camouflage, right now on Nova.
Almost as soon as we are in the water, we are greeted by a shoal of sea goldies. These striking orange-yellow fish can form shoals of up to 2,000 individuals. They eat plankton and like to gather at the edge of the reef where the current will drive their preferred prey towards them. A pair of blue tangs appear right in front of us and quickly flee. The coral hind gives us considerably more time to admire it. Coral hinds are among the largest fish on the reef, and as predators, they are high up in the food chain. The Red Sea bannerfish is a far gentler creature. It is one of the family of butterfly fish, which includes some of the most beautiful fish species in the coral oceans. In contrast, the common lionfish is far from being harmless. Its long spines contain a powerful poison. The vivid yellow-blue-cheeked butterfly fish is a close relative of the Red Sea bannerfish we have just encountered.
Mountain plateau on Earth. And here, the elusive snow leopard rules the range. This is Dawa, and this incredible dreamscape is her home. At an altitude of 14,000 feet above sea level, the climate here is too cold for most mammals. But Dawa thrives here. Every part of her body is designed for this unique terrain. From her exceptionally long tail that helps her maintain balance, to her gray dappled fur that provides the perfect camouflage in these rocky surroundings. Dawa is at the top of her food chain and at the top of her game. She knows every crag and cranny of this mountain. This is her turf. But she's picked up a scent. An unwelcome visitor. The intruder knows she's in Dawa's territory, but challenges her nonetheless. They face off in a chilling test of nerves. Dawa must convey strength or risk a full-on battle. The intruder finally submits. Dawa retains her supremacy. For now. Dawa is not a feline to be messed with. And right now, nothing could shake her resolve. After all, it's not just her hunting grounds she's protecting. To her, these two little cubs are the most important things on Earth. Providing for them and keeping them safe is her life's mission.
Giant straw-colored fruit bats inhabit the great forest of the Congo. Their wings are nearly a meter across. In late October every year, they set off on a long journey across the forest canopy. Flocks of hundreds become thousands. And tens of thousands become hundreds of thousands. They are fast and powerful flyers and can travel 1,000 miles in just a few nights. How they know where and when to travel is a mystery, but they all end up in one place, Kasanka, a remote swamp in Zambia. There are 10 million of them here. They crowd together in just one small patch of forest, no bigger than 2 or 3 football pitches. And here they take up residence for a few weeks. It's the largest fruit bat roost on Earth.
Side of the mountain, life is decidedly less stressful. This is Yaya, a giant panda. Pandas are basically the opposite of monkeys. They're not interested in stirring up trouble. They just want to be left alone to eat and relax and scratch various different areas. And once Yaya has completed her morning chores, she returns to her real focus in life. Her newborn daughter. My. Outside of raising cubs, adult female pandas live almost completely solitary lives. So for Yaya, this is the most treasured time of her life. These two will be spending the next several months snuggled up here inside this den. But then they'll step out into the world. And the real journey will begin. Far to the east of Dawa, in the Sichuan mountain valleys of central China, a mere 8,000 feet above sea level, golden snub-nosed monkeys run wild. Monkeys have long been figures of rebellion and mischief in Chinese folktales. And one of the most mischievous monkeys on this mountain is Tao Tao. He's the class clown of his troop and an aspiring kung fu master. At 2 years old, Tao Tao no longer needs to be overseen by his parents, but he still likes to come home to his father's side after a long day of adventuring. Tao Tao just loves his dad. His dad, however, isn't big on showing affection, leaving Tao Tao feeling a little unappreciated. Oh well, he can always count on his mother to shower him with attention. But the recent arrival of a new baby sister in the family has spoiled some of that maternal magic on the home front. While monkey families only have one father, they each have several mothers who all help one another care for their young. Tao Tao misses the days when he used to be the center of attention, despite the danger involved. He's quickly coming to the realization that he's no longer the darling of his family. This new little bundle of joy has taken his place. It seems so unfair when all the comfort and acceptance you've gotten used to is suddenly stolen from you. Fine, forget it then.